This happened a little over a year ago. I was 35 and had been a computer engineer for a long time. When I got the offer to work at Area 51, I was thrilled. I thought it would be a huge step for my career. I was excited to be part of something special. But I never stopped thinking about my time there since. The first few weeks were fairly normal. I sat at my desk, the lights buzzing overhead. My co-workers were nice. We joked about UFOs and swapped local legends about the desert. I felt good, like I belonged. But soon, everything changed. One night, I was deep into my work. It was quiet except for the sound of my keyboard. I looked at the clock. It was late. I decided to stretch my legs and took a walk down the hall. That's when I saw a door at the end that I had never noticed before. It was locked, but there was a weird light glowing from behind it. It pulsed in a strange way. My heart raced as I got closer. I wanted to know what was behind that door. Just before I could grab the handle, my supervisor appeared. His face was pale and tense. He pulled me aside and told me in a low voice to forget about that door. "You don't need to know what's in there," he said. I wanted to ask more, but I could see fear in his eyes. It was unsettling. I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. After that, things felt off. The machine started acting strange. Screens flashed strange messages. It felt like a dark cloud settled over the team. I could hear whispers about the project. My stomach dropped every time. I wanted to understand what was happening, but I felt scared. One night, while working late again, I heard noise outside my office. I stepped out and saw one of my colleagues pacing, talking to himself. He looked wild, his eyes wide and frantic. I called out, but he didn't seem to hear me. My heart raced. I felt trapped, like I was in a nightmare. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A strange hum filled the air. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. I wanted to tell myself it was stress, but something felt wrong. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Then I saw it. I turned and caught a shadow moving in the corner of my eye. Cold fear ran through me. I quickly looked, but nothing was there. I stood frozen, the air heavy with dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. As I tried to calm myself, I heard a faint whisper. "Jake." It came from the direction of the locked door. My body went stiff. Was it a joke? A prank? I didn't feel safe. And then, as if on cue, the lights went out completely. I felt a chill envelop me. My breath came out in quick bursts. I didn't know what was happening. My heart raced, and I was left standing in darkness, the echo of that whisper haunting me. I felt I was not alone. I stood in the dark, paralyzed by uncertainty. The silence was overwhelming, broken only by my own shaky breaths. I strained to hear anything, but just as quickly as the whisper had come, it faded away. I didn't know whether to run or stay. "Jake," the voice had called. Was it a plea or a warning? I took a cautious step back toward my office. My mind raced with thoughts. Should I go back? What about my colleague? The one pacing outside? What had happened to him? I felt a surge of adrenaline as fear pushed me into motion. I needed to find out what was going on. I fumbled for the door handle, but it felt wrong in my hands. I forced it down and stepped into the hall, my heart thumping loudly now. The lights flickered weakly above me. I'd never been this afraid at work. I pressed on, trying to remember where I had last seen my colleague. As I turned the corner, a faint light glimmered down the hallway, the same glow I had seen coming from the locked door. I felt drawn to it again, despite my instincts screaming at me to turn back. I approached carefully. The strange, pulsing light continued to beckon me. I felt my skin crawl as I got closer. It was warmer here, almost inviting. It made no sense. I glanced back down the hall, wondering if I'd see anyone else, but it was just me and the hum that seemed to resonate from the door. My curiosity battled with my fear. What could be so important that it warranted being locked away? Then I remembered my supervisor's anxious face. Forget about that door. The whisper echoed in my mind again, and against every logical thought, I reached out and touched the door. Cold metal met my palm. I could feel something thrumming behind it, like a heartbeat. But I held my breath. There was an unease that settled deep in my gut. I stepped back, but I could hear the noise again. It was a rhythmic sound, like something alive stirring. My heart sank. What was I about to unleash? Then, a loud bang startled me, coming from the other side. Panic bubbled up inside me. In that moment, my instincts kicked in. I turned and ran back toward my office, ready to find my colleague and get out. I burst in, but the room was empty. Papers were scattered across my desk. The screens flickered to life, all showing the same message: find us. The word sent chills down my spine. Before I could process what that meant, the lights began to flicker again and I heard whispers echoing behind me. It was a chorus, all murmuring my name. Jake, Jake. I spun around, but there was nothing there. My pulse raced as I tried to convince myself it was a trick of my mind. But something told me the door wasn't just a door, it was a gateway to something far worse. Then everything went dark again, this time for longer. I stumbled, disoriented. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a storm. I couldn't stay here. I needed to figure out what they wanted, but all I could do was stand there, the darkness wrapping around me like a shroud. When I heard it again, clear as day. Jake, we need you. The word sent a jolt of fear into my heart. I felt like I was on the brink of something monumental. What did they need me for? What lay behind that door? I needed to know. I steadied myself, gulping down my fear. The darkness felt thick like a fog, pressing in from all sides. We need you. The voice rang in my ears, mixing with the chaos of whispers. Who were they? And more importantly, what did they want with me? Squinting into the dark, I remembered the glow from the hallway. It teased my curiosity, pulling me back. I hesitated, torn between the urge to flee and the desire to uncover the truth. I forced my feet to move, retracing my steps toward the door. As I approached, the air grew charged, tinged with something electric. The whispers intensified, hurriedly urging me on. I couldn't turn back now. I reached the door again, and this time I pushed against it, testing if it would budge. To my surprise, it swung open easily, and a blinding light flooded out. I shielded my eyes, squinting against the onslaught. As my vision adjusted, I stepped inside, my heart racing. The room was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Equipment lined the walls, strange devices, flashing lights, screens filled with charts and numbers. In the center was a large, circular table surrounded by people in lab coats, their faces strained with worry. They turned to me in unison. Jake, a woman in the group exclaimed, her voice filled with urgency. You made it. We were beginning to lose hope. I felt a rush of confusion wash over me. Lose hope? Hope for what? The woman caught her breath and gestured for me to sit. They're coming. We need your help to stop them. I stumbled back, my mind racing. Who is coming? What is going on here? Please, you don't have much time, another man interjected. You're the key to everything. You have to listen. We can explain on the way. Before I could protest, they ushered me toward a door on the opposite side of the room. I could feel my heart pounding. Fear mixed with a strange sense of purpose. I hesitated as they pushed through the door. Where are we going? To the control room. Everything depends on you understanding this. The woman's eyes looked desperate, but there was something in her tone that felt almost familiar, like I had known this moment would come. Without waiting for a reply, they pulled me along. The moment we entered the next chamber, I was hit with a wave of noise. Operators shouted commands, screens flashed alerts, a cacophony of impending chaos. "Jake, it's time to activate the protocol," the woman urged. "You've been part of this since the beginning. You're capable of this." My throat went dry. "But I don't understand any of it." "Trust us," she said, clutching my arm tightly. "You're more prepared than you know." Just as I was about to voice my doubts, the lights flickered and alarms blared, echoing the urgent whispers from before. "Jake!" The voices surged again, mingling with the alarm bells. "Help us!" Out of the chaos, I finally noticed that the images flashing on the monitors were showing something unsettling. Figures, shadowy beings, approaching. Before I could grasp what it all meant, an ear-shattering crash echoed behind us. I turned, heart in my throat, as the door we had entered through shook violently. "Now!" the woman yelled, her eyes wide with panic. Then I saw it. Just for a brief moment, a figure slipped through the doorway behind us. I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. What had I just stepped into? I took a deep breath. I needed to make a choice. If we were in this together, I had to do something. I just hoped I wasn't too late. I stood frozen, my body locked in a state of confusion as the urgency of the moment crashed over me. The woman's frantic eyes anchored my thoughts. "Activate the protocol. We can't delay any longer." Before I could respond, the room erupted into chaos. Operators frantically tapped at keyboards, shouting instructions to one another as the screens around us displayed rapid changes. I could feel the tension rising, pressing against my chest. "Jake!" The woman pulled me toward a central console. "You need to enter the code. It's the only way to initiate the defense system." "Defense system?" I asked, desperate for clarity. "From what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pushed a small tablet toward me. "Just type what you see. You can do this." I blinked at the scrolling code on the screen, my mind racing. My fingers hovered over the keys, hesitating. The echoes of those whispers returned urgent, desperate. "We need you." With a surge of instinct, I began typing, fumbling at first. The letters clacked beneath my fingertips, and every push of a key felt like a leap into the unknown. "I don't know what I'm doing," I muttered under my breath. "Just focus." The woman shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "You're almost there." Suddenly, another crash shook the control room. I looked back, heart in my throat, to find the shadowy figure that had slipped through the door now standing ominously in the threshold. It seemed to pulse with darkness, merging with the flickering lights around it. "Move!" she cried, pushing me closer to the console. I felt a rush of panic but forced myself to keep going. With one last keystroke, the screen flashed green. "Access granted," blared an automated voice. I felt a glimmer of hope, then the lights overhead flickered dangerously. "We have to hurry," the woman insisted, pulling me closer. "Initiate the defense sequence now." Fear pulsed through me, but I couldn't let it paralyze me. Alarms blared, and more shadows began to spill into the room, their shapes twisting and writhing. "What are they?" I shouted, my throat dry. "Monsters," a voice whispered from somewhere in the chaos. "They're the reason we need you." Without thinking, I slammed my hands onto the console. "What do I do?" "Hit the red button." She pointed frantically at a flashing icon. I pressed it. The moment my finger left the button, the room filled with a deafening whir. Red lights pulsed, and the walls shook as something was unleashed. The woman let out a breath of relief as a shield sprang up around us. "It's working!" she exclaimed. But the relief was short-lived. The shadowy figures screamed, an eerie chorus piercing through the hum of machinery. They surged against the barrier, their twisted forms slamming into it with bone-chilling force. "Jake!" the woman yelled. We need to hold them back. You have to keep focusing. I locked my eyes on the screens again, but everything felt jumbled. The reality of what I was facing crashed down on me. Who were these beings? And why did they want me? That's when I noticed something unsettling. One monitor, separate from the rest, displayed a different scene. A countdown timer. It was ticking down fast. Wait, I stammered, pointing at it. What's that? Her face drained of color. If that reaches 0, we're done for. I felt a wave of fear surging again, and I knew that time was running out. I glanced at the encroaching shadows, and a single thought thudded in my mind. I had to figure this out. Fast. The timer continued its relentless countdown, each second echoing like a death knell. I felt the weight of the situation settle over me, pushing my breath shallow. Just then, the console buzzed ominously, and a new alert flashed across the screen: breach detected in Sector B. What does that mean? I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. The shadows were still battering against our shield, but the woman's face had gone ashen again. It means they're trying to get in. She yelled back, her voice strained. If the barrier fails, we're vulnerable. I swallowed hard. What do I do? Reroute the power. It will strengthen the barrier. Find the energy allocation tab in the system. She pointed to a cluster of options blinking on the interface, her hands shaking that I scanned the screen, my heart racing as the shadows continued their assault. The twisted forms twisted and fluctuated, their cries a horrifying symphony. I don't know how. I exclaimed, feeling lost in the complexity of it all. Just look for anything that seems associated with energy distribution. She pleaded. My fingers danced across the keys, a frantic search for the right command. Suddenly a vibration pulsed through the floor, and I stumbled. Are we safe? For now. She replied, her eyes narrowing. But we need to act fast. They're increasing their strength. Just as I pinpointed an option, the shadows recoiled momentarily, suddenly retreating from our barrier. An unnatural silence filled the room as the light shifted like a breath held in anticipation. What the? I whispered, confusion flooding me. Then it happened. It felt like a thunderclap in the confined space. A massive breach echoed from behind us. The shadows flooded into the room, breaking through the barrier with a force that sent me sprawling. I turned my head just in time to see the swirling mass of darkness solidifying into a sharp-edged creature, its eyes aflame with malevolence. Jake! Behind you! The woman screamed. I rolled just as icy hands brushed against my ankle. Panic surged, fueling my desperation. What is it? I shouted, scrambling backward. Focus on the code. She yelled, dodging a shadowy attack. You need to activate the emergency lockdown. I scrambled back up to the console, frantically typing in commands. The timer loomed large on the screen, still ticking down. My mind raced. I could still redirect power, but every second felt like a lifetime. 5 seconds left. The woman screamed. Come on. I shouted, hands shaking as I hit the last key. The screen blinked, and suddenly the room shuddered. Heavy locks engaged around us, sealing the walls in a protective chamber. But just as relief washed over me, the lights flickered wildly. It's not enough. I heard a dark voice whisper amidst the rattling chaos. I felt it in my bones. This was just the beginning. Outside the protective chamber, the shadows roared and clawed against the walls, their existence a threat I couldn't escape. My heart raced, the countdown halted in my mind as I looked at the woman. Her eyes were wide with dread. Just then, I glanced at another monitor. One I hadn't noticed before. Data was streaming across it, revealing a horrifying truth. And that's when I realized, I wasn't just a part of this operation. I was its target. My mind reeled as I processed the implications of that monitor. Data wasn't just relaying information, it was detailing my every move, my every interaction within this facility. A chill crept over me. Why would they? I began, but the woman cut me off. Focus, Jake. She urged, her voice sharp. The shadows outside continued their relentless assault, and the walls trembled with their fury. We need to find a way out of here. Out? I echoed, fear creeping into my bones. With the shadows pressing in, escape seemed impossible. How? Look for an access panel. If we can get to the maintenance tunnels, we might find a way back to the main grid, she said, glancing nervously at the rattling door. I nodded, urgency lighting my thoughts. I turned back to the console, scanning for anything I could use to create a path. The stress was overwhelming as I fought to ignore the chaotic noise outside. I pointed to a section of the wall. It looked like it could potentially slide open. Is there a panel there? Yes. Get it open. She shouted, her eyes darting around. I moved quickly, bringing my hands to the surface. Fortunately, it responded to my touch, revealing a small keypad. I started punching in combinations randomly, hoping for the best. My fingers felt heavy, hesitating with dread every time I pressed a key. The panel began beeping in protest. This isn't going to work. I hissed, anxiety tearing at me. Come on, think. She urged, pacing behind me. There must be a code somewhere, something easy to remember like a birthday or an anniversary. I couldn't think straight. I was so close to panic, but then something flashed in my mind, a date. My little sister's birthday. With a deep breath, I tried it. 8520, I said, pressing the keys with renewed energy. The panel clicked, and the wall shuddered. It slid open, revealing a dark shaft that led downward. A breath of relief coursed through me. It worked. Jump in. She commanded, no hint of hesitation in her tone. Before I comprehended what was happening, she grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. The darkness enveloped us. Falling down the tunnel felt like an eternity. I landed hard on a metal grate, rolling to absorb the impact. The woman followed right after, a grunt of pain escaping her as she landed beside me. We scrambled to our feet, panting in the dim surroundings. We need to keep moving, she urged, her eyes searching the shadows. The breach won't hold them for long. I turned to her, confusion swirling in my gut. What if whatever is out there knows us now? And it's going to hunt us down. We can't stop. I thought of the data on the monitor. I hadn't just been working on this project, I was its chosen sacrifice. The thought made my heart race faster. Breathing hard, I did my best to push it aside. As we made our way through the cramped space, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. And then it came, a low growl echoing through the tunnel. My blood ran cold. Run! I yelled, and we took off, the darkness closing in around us as the sound of something chasing us grew louder. The sound of footsteps echoed behind us, heavy and relentless. I couldn't tell how far we'd run or how deep we were into the tunnels, but every growl sent a bolt of fear racing through me. That creature or whatever it was gaining on us. Where does this tunnel lead? I gasped, trying to keep pace with the woman beside me. She didn't answer, her focus locked ahead. We turned a sharp corner and skidded to a halt. The space opened up into a larger chamber, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. I felt slightly safer here, relieved to momentarily break from the claustrophobic tunnel. But that relief was short-lived. That way. She pointed toward an exit on the far wall, but just as we surged forward, something monstrous crashed against the entrance we had come through. The wall vibrated violently. Go! I'll hold it back. She shouted, determination hardening her features. No way. I protested, panic rising. You can't. I can and I will. Just go. Against my better judgment, I sprinted toward the exit. I heard her scramble behind me, the growl intensifying as it broke free from the tunnel. My breath turned shallow as I flung myself into the opening. I tumbled into another tunnel that was wider, but it quickly darkened, the walls damp and glistening. I pushed myself up and turned back just in time to see her dive through the entrance. The monstrous figure followed, just a step behind. I clenched my fists, searching for something to defend us with. What do we do now? Look for another access panel, she yelled, scanning the walls. I nodded, mind racing. My heart thundered as I searched for options in the dim light. Then I saw a control panel embedded into the wall, slightly ajar. My fingers flew across the surface, desperate to get something working. Come on, come on, I murmured. I glanced back. Our pursuer had paused at the entry from the chamber, silhouetted by the faint light. It sniffed the air, wheeled its head, and emitted a bone-chilling growl. The panel sparked to life. Icons flashed before my eyes. There has to be a way to lock it out, I shouted, my fingers trembling. Suddenly a clawed hand crashed against the panel, and the screen flickered ominously. Good thing I made a choice quickly. The symbols were foreign, but instinct kicked in. I pressed a combination of keys at random again, fear guiding my hand. The growl turned into a high-pitched screech, vibrating my bones. I didn't look back, afraid of what I might see. I put everything I had into retrieving the function that would save us. Please, I begged, my finger hovering over the last key. Just work. Then it went quiet. A heavy silence followed, and I held my breath. After a moment, the panel beeped once, twice, and then a heavy door slammed shut behind us. The screech morphed into a snarl as it lost our scent, but the door held. The relief washed over me, but then I noticed the screen flicker again. One word caught my eye. Locked. And right below it, another danger. I glanced at her in fear. What now? That S when the lights went out. Darkness enveloped us. It was absolute, more suffocating than the chase we had just survived. My heart raced in the silence. I could barely see my own hands in front of me, let alone anything else. Are you okay? I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, she replied, though her tone betrayed her anxiety. I heard the scuff of her shoes as she shifted nervously. We need to find light. Right. I snapped my fingers, hoping a sound would somehow break the gloom. Maybe there's another panel here? I felt my way along the wall, fingers tracing the cool metal. I hesitated. The last thing I wanted was to accidentally activate something. But we were running out of time. The growl from moments earlier echoed ominously in my mind. Can you feel anything? She asked, her voice a tight whisper. Just this wall. It feels smooth. I squinted, hoping my eyes would adjust, but they didn't. Maybe there's a button or something. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the chamber, vibrating the ground beneath us. My skin prickled with fear. We weren't safe here. Let us try to move, I said, trying to mask the fear in my voice. We can't just stand here. We took a few tentative steps, the sound of my footfalls swallowed by the dark. Then, without warning, a soft blue light flickered on ahead. Over there, she exclaimed, and I followed her gaze. It cast strange shadows on the damp walls, an eerie glow that made the space feel more sinister. As we approached, I saw that it came from another control panel, this one active with more symbols than the last. Do you think it can help us? I asked, my curiosity pulling me closer. Before she could answer, the growl returned, this time closer, angrier. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was rooted in place, staring at the light illuminating half of her frightened face. It might lock us in again, she said urgently, shaking her head as if to clear it. But we're trapped if we don't try. I reached for the panel. The screen flashed with incomprehensible symbols, and my fingers hesitated above them. Don't try to decipher it, she implored. Just press anything. I closed my eyes, summoning courage, and slammed my finger down on a series of glowing icons. The moment I pressed, alarms blared. "What did you do?" she shouted. "I don't know." Panic surged through me as the lights intensified, casting sharp shadows around. The growling grew louder, a chorus of snarls that sent chills creeping down my spine. I grabbed her wrist, pulling her closer just as the surface beneath us rumbled again, a vibration that felt like the world was coming apart. "Run!" I yelled, dragging her along. The light pulsed, bright and erratic, revealing distorted shapes in the shadows, then everything shifted. The ground shook violently, and the control panel exploded, sending sparks flying. I ducked, pulling her down as debris rained around us. "Is it coming?" I shouted over the tumult. "I don't know. We have to find another way out." As the chaos swirled around us, that one nagging question clawed at my mind: what had we just awakened? Then everything turned silent again, but not for long. Someone or something was approaching. The silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the soft padding of footsteps. I strained to listen, heart pounding in my ears. Whoever or whatever was coming was closer now. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, dropping my voice even lower. She nodded, eyes wide with fear. I pulled her toward the nearest wall, the rough surface cool against my back. We pressed ourselves into the shadows, hoping to blend into the darkness. Every instinct urged me to move, to escape, but my legs felt like lead. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath, feeling the tension slice through the quiet. Then, a soft thump reverberated through the chamber, and I felt a rush of air as if something had just emerged from the dark. "Stay still," I murmured, squeezing her hand. The figure materialized from the shadows like a ghost. It was humanoid but moved with an awkwardness that set every nerve in my body on fire. I could barely make out its features: pale skin, wide eyes that glowed eerily in the dim light. "What is that?" she gasped, fear dripping from her voice that I shook my head. "I don't know, but we have to move." Just as I was about to pull her away, the creature turned our direction. My breath caught in my throat. It seemed to sense us, its head tilting ever so slightly. Then it opened its mouth, and what came out was a series of inhuman growls and clicks, a sound that almost felt like words. "Run!" I shouted, and this time I didn't hesitate. I yanked her along the wall, heart racing with adrenaline. We zigzagged through the shadows, keeping low, praying the creature wouldn't follow. I spotted a doorway just ahead, barely visible in the flickering light. "There." I pointed. As we darted toward it, I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was right behind us, its breath echoing in my ears. We reached the door and I shoved it open, slamming it shut behind us. Panting, we leaned against it, listening. The growling faded, but our relief was short-lived. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling. That I glanced around the new space. It was a small room, cluttered with strange equipment I couldn't begin to understand. Monitors flickered to life, showing images of various locations within the facility. But one screen grabbed my attention: a live feed of the room we had just escaped. "This isn't good," I muttered, feeling the dread crawl back up my spine. "You see that?" She pointed at the screen. "It's watching us." That's when I noticed a red light blinking on the control panel beside me. I reached out, tempted to see what it controlled, when suddenly the door rattled violently. Panic surged through me. "I think it knows we're here," I said, backing away. "Find another exit," she urged, scanning the walls. I hastily searched the room, my hands trembling as I fumbled across unfamiliar devices. Then I saw a small hatch at the far side, half obscured by shadows. "Over there!" I yelled. But just as we moved toward it, the door burst open, and the creature stood there, silhouetted against the light. I froze, the fear tightening my chest. "Go!" I screamed, pushing her forward just as the creature lunged. We bolted toward the hatch, adrenaline surging as I felt the creature's presence bearing down on us. The air was thick with panic. She reached for the hatch first, shoving it open just enough for us to squeeze through. I could hear it roar behind us, a monstrous sound that made my skin crawl. As we tumbled into the narrow passageway beyond the hatch, I forced myself to breathe. The darkness enveloped us, the cramped space echoing with the sound of my frantic heart. She was ahead, guiding the way, desperation propelling us forward. I had no idea where this tunnel would lead, but I had to trust it was better than what we were leaving behind. The walls felt damp and raw against my palms as I pushed forward, my senses heightened with every step. "Do you think it's still following us?" she whispered, eyes darting back toward the hatch. "I don't think it can fit through," I said, though my voice wavered with doubt. We pressed on, the sound of our footsteps a muted rhythm in the dark. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber, dimly lit but mercifully empty. We paused to catch our breath, leaning against the cold metal walls. I took a moment to glance around, scanning for any potential escape routes. The oppressive silence left us with our thoughts of the shadows, the whispers, the growing uncertainty that had invaded my mind. "Jake," she said softly, catching my attention. "What were they? What did they want with us?" I shook my head, trying to suppress the mounting dread that gnawed at my core. "I don't know. But we have to keep moving." I remembered the countdown timer, the data on the screens. I could still feel the weight of that information hanging in the air. As we resumed our hurried escape, I noticed something peculiar ahead, a faint light flashing at the far end of the chamber. My heart quickened, a flicker of hope igniting despite the gnawing fear that we were being hunted. "Is that an exit?" she asked, squinting in its direction. "It has to be," I replied, leading the way again. We hurried toward it, but as we drew closer, a rush of wind chilled my spine. It felt unnatural, foreboding. As we reached the light, I realized it came from a locked door, a towering steel frame adorned with a numeric keypad. "Can you open it?" she asked, her eyes locking onto the panel. "I'll try," I grunted, my fingers shaking as I approached the keypad. I could hardly focus on the numbers as I recalled all the sequences, the data I had seen like a hazy memory of code floating at the back of my mind. "Jake, hurry," she urged, glancing over her shoulder as if she expected the creature to break through at any moment. With a mounting sense of urgency, I began tapping random sequences. My heart sank when nothing happened. I felt panic creeping in, hands clammy on the cold surface. Think. I murmured under my breath, before an idea struck me. What if the information I processed was tied to the code? I glanced back at her. Could it be linked to my sister's birthday? 8520. I punched it in, hoping for a miracle. A series of beeps echoed in the silence, signaling successful entry. Yes. The door creaked as it slowly opened, revealing a blinding light that engulfed us. We stumbled into the hallway beyond, blinded temporarily. As our visions cleared, I saw we were in a larger facility, one with sterile walls lined with ominous warning signs and endless doors. This felt eerily familiar. "What the hell is this place?" she breathed, shaking her head in disbelief. "Maybe we're back to where it started? But safer?" I attempted to reassure her, but doubt seeped in. As we cautiously moved forward, I could still feel the shadows lurking behind us, always a threat. Then I caught sight of a flickering screen at the end of the hall, a brazen reminder of what we had experienced. "No," I breathed. "Jake, what is it?" "It's showing us," I replied, heart dropping. I stepped closer, the light casting eerie shapes of our previous struggles on the wall. "It's mapping everything we've encountered." The monitor displayed images of the creatures, their grotesque forms shifting and swirling, interlaced with footage of our escape path. "It's like they're watching us," I rasped, horror knotting in my stomach. I felt the room grow colder as the visions became more vivid, shadows flickering at the corners of the screen. "What does this mean?" she asked, clearly shaken. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. There were so many questions left unanswered, all those murmurs, the whispers that beckoned. "There has to be something we can do." Then, all at once, the room shook, and the console blinked ominously. "Danger!" it blared, spewing graphic warnings and numbers flooding the screen. The word seemed to pulse with life: containment breach imminent. In that instant, realization struck. The entities, the intrusion of my past, the very reason I was here, was I just another part of their game? "We need to get out," I shouted, adrenaline filling my veins. "Where do we go?" she cried, panic rising in her voice. "Anywhere but here," I yelled, taking her hand and darting into the next corridor. Behind us, shadows warped, gaining form, filling the space with an unsettling chill. I might not know what we faced, but I could still feel the weight of their eyes on us, watching, waiting that we plunged deeper into the uncharted expanse of the facility, the sounds of our footsteps mingling with the rush of darkness that threatened to swallow us. But as the din swelled, drowning out all clarity, I felt a flicker of something deep down, a spark of defiance that I didn't know what lay ahead, what awaited us in the depths of that facility. I only knew we needed to escape, to find the truth behind the layers of shadows that had drawn us in. And sometimes, the unknown was all there was between us and whatever monsters lurked in the dark. Would I ever find the answers I sought? Why this place, and why me? The questions remained unanswered as we sprinted, clouds of uncertainty shadowing our every move. In the end, the mystery of it all clawed at my mind. One thought echoed louder than the rest: survival depended not just on escape but on confronting the truth buried in the darkness. As we ran, I clutched her hand tightly, drowning in a whirlpool of questions that might never have answers. All I could do was hope.